In a quiet, green pocket of Kranji, far from the city's thrum, the lives of two individuals from vastly different generations began to intertwine, heralding a fateful connection. The creaking sounds of an old garden gate, once a mundane part of the landscape, transformed into a flutter of anticipation, promising that even bygone years could blossom anew. Before the sun had even painted the sky, a cool, pre-dawn mist enveloped the cluster of old houses and small farms. Roosters crowed piercingly, and minna birds gathered on zinc roofs, scattered in a flurry of activity. Yet, a scene quite out of sync with this rustic morning tableau unfolded at the edge of the area. A gleaming white van came rattling down the narrow track, its tires kicking up dust. Before screeching to a halt with a sharp pull of the handbrake, out stepped a strikingly young man, his hair still carrying the faint scent of city air conditioning. His eyes, however, held not the apprehension of a newcomer in an unfamiliar land, but a quiet resolve as if determined to reclaim something lost. Just days before, he had signed a lease for a small, somewhat rundown house with a plot of land through an agent committed to starting an urban farm. His reasons were simple: life in his HDB flat, amidst the relentless pace of the city, might have been comfortable, but it left his spirit parched. The soaring property prices, the intense Kiasu competition, and the weariness of superficial relationships had driven him to seek his true self. Bravely, he had plunged into this unfamiliar, semi-rural enclave. The van was laden mostly with farming tools, chancles, spades, watering cans, items a typical city dweller might never have touched, along with large planter boxes and a few bags of simple clothing. Right next door lived the oldest resident of this little community, an Ah Ma grandmother who had just turned 70. Most people called her Auntie Mei, though her full name was Tan Mei Lian. She had spent her life cultivating these lands, first with her late husband, then alone. As her strength waned, she had taken to occasionally helping on neighboring plots to make ends meet. People seemed to have forgotten she was once a wife, a mother. Always shuttling between her home and her small garden, Auntie Mei lived a solitary life. Word had it that her children had long moved to new HDB estates, and old friends rarely visited anymore. Yet Auntie Mei had once possessed a fiery, youthful spirit. There was a time when she'd be up before anyone else, working with vigor, and knew how to enjoy a moment of lepic relaxing under a shady tree after a hearty lunch. But her husband's sudden passing and her children's subsequent distance had gradually withered her zest for life. The young man's name was Lim Wei Jie, 27. To him, the word farming had felt like an exotic perfume. He had romanticized the idea of a back-to-basics life, believing a kind of idyllic freedom awaited him in this greener part of Singapore. However, from tilling the soil and choosing seeds to managing crops and dealing with pests and fertilizers, everything was utterly new. Initially, he thought the information gleaned from YouTube tutorials and online forums would suffice, but reality hit hard when he faced the compact, sometimes clay-heavy soil, struggling to coax out the first tender shoots. One sweltering afternoon, as Wei Jie nursed blisters on his hands, a voice, firm yet not unkind, startled him. "Ah boy, with hands like that, how you going to farm? Come, eat some rice first." It was Auntie Mei. Though her tone was gruff, there was an undeniable warmth beneath it. Wei Jie might have politely declined, waving his hands in refusal, but his stomach rumbled its own loud signal. Grinning sheepishly, he followed her to her house. Auntie Mei's house, though old and modest from the outside, was neat and tidy within. From the kitchen wafted a familiar, comforting aroma, reminiscent of the food his own grandmother used to cook. "Ayo? For a city boy, you quite a good eater, whore," Auntie Mei remarked, a hint of a smile playing on her lips. Even this simple teasing warmed Wei Jie's tired heart. "Auntie, I haven't cooked a proper meal for myself in ages. I was almost surviving on instant noodles." "Thank you so much." "Aya, what thank you? Young man cannot go hungry, big problem." The meal wasn't a lavish spread, but it was wholesome homemade acar, freshly picked kangkong from her garden, and a fragrant pot of herbal chicken soup. Through their brief, intermittent conversation, Wei Jie sensed that Auntie Mei hadn't opened up to anyone in a very long time. He wondered if her willingness to share her food and time with him was more than just curiosity about a young face. Perhaps, like him, she too yearned for a connection. That evening, Auntie Mei began his practical lessons in the field. "First, you must learn to rasa feel the land, boy. See if the water drains well, how fertile it is. You must use your feet, your hands, learn the feel of it." It sounded simple, but each time Wei Jie stepped onto the tilled earth, his legs wobbled. "What's your name again, you said?" "Ah, it's Wei Jie, Auntie." "Wei Jie." The other cactus friends, folks around here might say nice things, but actual farming is not so easy, you know. You will fail many times, your heart also will sack it hurt. But don't give up. If you learn diligently, one day, there's nothing you can't grow from your own soil. Be it kangkong or long beans. That night, under a crescent moon, Auntie Mei and Wei Jie bent over the earth, their hands touching the soil, taking the first steps in his farming journey together. Wei Jie felt he would never forget this moment, the unique sensation of living earth it sent, and the warmth of someone selflessly sharing their time and knowledge with him, feelings he'd never encountered in the bustling city. As days turned into weeks, a subtle change occurred between them. Wei Jie began calling her Ah Ma Mei, and would often visit her for meals. Throughout these meals, Ah Ma Mei would dispense a steady stream of nagging. Young fellow, why are legs so weak? Why are hands so rough already? You work like this every day, your back will come break first, you know? Yet, strangely, her nagging wasn't unwelcome. It felt like proof that this solitary old woman cared for him in her own way. Meanwhile, the few other residents in the area began to whisper that Ah Ma Mei seemed more vibrant lately. Previously, no one visited her and she visited no one. Now, a young man's voice could often be heard at her house, sometimes even shared laughter. Initially, they dismissed it with jokes. How old already? What kind of feelings can she have for a young chap? But as time went on, the atmosphere grew subtly different. Wei Jie was seen walking with Ah Ma Mei to the nearby wet market, and on busy days, they even went to the wholesale market at Pasir Panjang in the early hours together. He could have been her grandson or nephew, yet there was an undeniable, unique warmth and camaraderie between them that intrigued those around. One day, it poured, a typical tropical downpour. Wei Jie woke before dawn, looked out the window and thought, today, must postpone the fieldwork. If the heavy rain soaked the plots, nothing could be done. Yet an inexplicable worry for Ah Ma Mei gnawed at him. Grabbing an umbrella, he hurried next door. Ah Ma, you got umbrella? No need, la. Small rain, I just can't endure a bit, can already. She waved her hand dismissively. But Wei Jie was insistent. Cannot, auntie. Later you catch a cold. Summer rain may be okay, but this kind of monsoon rain, cooler than you think. Ah Ma Mei looked at him wordlessly, her eyes seeming to ask, why is this young man so concerned about me? Indeed, it had been a long time since she, a lone elderly woman in this quiet corner, forgotten by family and friends, had felt anyone's concern. The void in her heart was a heavy loneliness she couldn't articulate. That afternoon, during a lull in the rain, Wei Jie visited Ah Ma Mei's house. Ah Ma, when the rain stops, the house will get very humid. Here, put some of these dehumidifier packs around. I brought them from my old place, still about extra. Ah Ma Mei hesitated for a moment, then chuckled. Ayo, live so long, first time see this kind of thing. Young fellow taking care of old me. Nothing to say but thank you. Ah Ma, don't say like that. I'm the one always getting help from you. Suddenly, Ah Ma Mei's eyes seemed to glisten. But she quickly changed the subject. Your parents, you contact them often or not? Wei Jie was momentarily flustered. The truth was, he had left the city partly to escape his parents' well-meaning but constant advice and expectations. He wanted to carve his own path, believing that if he achieved some tangible success, they would finally acknowledge his choices. But farming was slower, more arduous than he'd imagined, and setbacks cost both time and money. Not so often, Ah Ma. Waiting until I feel a bit more settled, then I'll call them. Ah Ma Mei nodded silently. Then, she said softly, don't know what your story is, but your parents surely want you to be well. When your heart feels ready, call them, okay? The rain continued, halting the planned fieldwork. With this unexpected free time, Wei Jie asked Ah Ma Mei about the old days. Ah Ma, how did you farm last time? Very different from now, right? She replied as if it were nothing. That time, we wake up when still dark, carry backle basket on our backs to the cabin garden. No machines like now, not many convenient tools. Really use own two hands to dig, to plant. Middle of the day, so hot, cannot breathe sometimes. But still, enjoy the work, you know. Sometimes my husband come back from working in town, he bring back small treats. Like those ice gem biscuits in a tiny box. Don't know why, but that time so sweet, so chic. A nostalgic expression softened Ah Ma Mei's features. Wei Jie watched her, not wanting to miss a single flicker of emotion. Your husband must have been a very good man, Ah Ma. At this, she turned her head slightly. Nothing special. Now he's gone to the other world already. But when he was young, he also worked hard a lot, just like me. And so, they chatted to people from different eras, yet finding a strange resonance. The very act of sharing stories, of listening and being heard, seemed to reawaken a long-dormant pulse in their hearts. When the rain finally stopped, the farming community buzzed with renewed energy, preparing for the busy season. Tractors, though smaller than in vast farmlands, tilled the land where possible, and people were busy with chancles and hoes. For Wei Jie, the real work was about to begin. Tightening his belt, he followed Ah Ma Mei's teachings, tending the soil, sowing seeds, watering, weeding. There were many moments of discouragement, but whenever Ah Ma Mei offered a small piece of advice, Wei Jie found new strength. One cool dawn, Wei Jie went to his small vegetable plot, humming a tune. He blinked, then stared. Where there had been only dark soil a few days ago, tiny, vibrant green shoots had emerged. Gently, he touched them, feeling the breath of the tiny leaves. A wave of joy and profound emotion washed over him. Nearly a month of sweat and toil had finally manifested his life. So this is the magic of farming, huh? Though small and fragile, the seedlings had taken root, and he could vividly picture them growing stronger. Overcome with emotion, he wanted to share this joy immediately. He ran to Ah Ma Mei's house. Ah Ma, the sprouts are out. A wide smile spread across Ah Ma Mei's face. What? Good job. You really worked hard, boy. When these grow big, I'll cook you some delicious dishes, you wait and see. At her words, Wei Jie felt an inexplicable surge of emotion. He reached out and gently took her weathered hand with his own rough one. Thank you so much, Ah Ma. If not for you, I think I would have given up long ago. Ah Ma Mei flinched slightly at the touch but didn't pull her hand away. Conversation paused, and in that brief silence, the air was thick with a peculiar tenderness. Beyond the age difference, a sense of comfort and warmth flowed between them, and neither was entirely unaware that this feeling was slowly, subtly, transforming into a deep, poignant affection. A few days later, news came of a big Pasar-Pagi morning market festival being organized in the community. It was a chance for local growers to sell produce from their gardens and farms. Wei Jie was excited, hoping to sell even a small amount of his own vegetables. Ah Ma Mei advised against it, saying his harvest wasn't substantial enough for sale yet. But Wei Jie, eager for the experience, insisted. Together, they went to the market. The night before, they had carefully cleaned each vegetable, bundled them neatly, and even attached little handwritten labels. Ayo, prepare so carefully. Confirm someone will appreciate. La, Ah Ma Mei said, coughing intermittently as she helped. Ah Ma, you've been coughing a lot lately. You seem a bit unwell. Maybe go see doctor. Yeah? Old already. We're got no problem one. Just rest a bit, we'll be okay. Wei Jie felt uneasy but didn't press further since she was so adamant. The next morning, the market was bustling with people. Many from nearby HDB estates curious to see the local produce. Wei Jie, setting up his small stall, felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. What if nothing sold? But his worries were unfounded. People were drawn to his fresh leafy greens. Wow, this one organic. Young man grow himself one, they'd ask, and one by one his vegetables were sold. Since he didn't have a large quantity, he sold out quickly. Wow, really hang lucky. Sold out, Ah Ma. Ah Ma Mei watched from the side, beaming. Good job, boy. This money. What you want to do? First, invest more in the farm, La. And maybe can help a bit with your medical checkup. Where got talk to elder like that? Ah Ma Mei chided, but a smile lingered on her face. On their way back from the market, the sun was already beginning to set. Wei Jie, on an impulse, managed to buy Ah Ma Mei a new pair of sturdy Wellington boots. He had noticed her old ones were worn thin and tattered. Ayo, no need, La. Why waste money? She grumbled for a long time, but eventually accepted them with a quiet thank you. However, trouble struck that night. Ah Ma Mei, who had seemed more fatigued than usual, suddenly developed a high fever. Around midnight, Wei Jie, startled by distressed groans from next door, rushed over and knocked. Ah Ma, are you okay? No answer? He pushed open the unlocked door to find her forehead beaded with sweat, her consciousness hazy. Panicked but trying to stay calm, Wei Jie quickly dialed 995, the nearest hospital with an A, and it was a good 20-minute drive away. The wait felt like an eternity. Ah Ma, please, wake up. Stay with me. At his urgent voice, she barely opened her eyes. Wei Jie, sorry, small thing only, Ah Ma, please don't say anything. Just hold on, please. In that moment, Ah Ma Mei's hand gripped Wei Jie's tightly as if it were the first and last time. Wei Jie's heart ached. A dreadful fear seized him. What if this was it? He hadn't learned all her farming secrets yet. They hadn't gone to that hawker center she mentioned, nor had they visited Makarachi Reservoir for a walk as they'd idly planned. It was only in this critical moment that he truly realized how significant a place Ah Ma Mei held in his life. The wail of the ambulance siren cut through the night. She was carefully placed on a stretcher and rushed to the hospital. Thanks to prompt treatment in the emergency room, Ah Ma Mei regained consciousness. but the doctor recommended admission for further tests. Wei Jie stayed by her side, holding her hand throughout the night, terrified that if he closed his eyes even for a moment, she might disappear. Fortunately, the doctor explained it wasn't a critical illness, but due to her advanced age, her immunity was very low. She needed ample rest and nutrition. A wave of relief mixed with guilt washed over Wei Jie. "Ah Ma, please hang in there. I will take care of you, I promise." To this, Ah Ma Mei weakly replied, "So strange, whore? 70-year-old me, hearing a 27-year-old boy say he will protect me." An overwhelming emotion choked Wei Jie. He buried his face in her hand, tears welling in his eyes. "Please, Ah Ma, don't be sick alone anymore. I also cannot. If you are not around." A few days later, Ah Ma Mei was discharged, returning home with a walking aid. The doctor strictly forbade any strenuous work. "From now on, you must take it easy, Ah Ma. Any Jialet's strenuous work, I will do it," Wei Jie declared. From that day, he practically lived at her place, washing rice, cooking nourishing soups, tending her small garden patch, constantly worried she might collapse again. This vigilance kept him from sleeping soundly. Ah Ma Mei, in turn, found it novel and heartwarming to be cared for after so long. A warmth spread through a corner of her heart. Strangely, with this young man around, it felt as if flowers were blooming on the dull, mossy walls of her old house, a place that had felt grey for years. Whenever they looked at each other, an affection that transcended their age difference blossomed. One afternoon, while Wei Jie had briefly stepped out to his plot, he saw Ah Ma Mei sitting on the porch, gazing at the distant, hazy outline of the city. Wei Jie pretended to be engrossed in his farm work, but he was actually watching her. Her wrinkled face, etched with the marks of a long life lived close to the earth, her eyes, still holding a certain resilience despite accepting the weight of years, and the undeniable air of loneliness about her. "If only I can be a little bit of comfort to her," he thought. Suddenly, she called out, "Wei Jie, come sit here for a bit." "Okay, Ah Ma." They sat side by side, watching the fields glow under the setting sun. A breeze swept through, making Ah Ma Mei shiver slightly. Wei Jie quickly fetched a light shawl and draped it over her shoulders. "You know, Wei Jie," she began, "when you first came, I was a bit boy-song displeased. Thinking, another young one, think can play a country life, then cannot tan. Sure run away one. But you broke down even the last bit of my stubborn pride, and planted kindness in my heart instead." She paused, then continued, "Ah Ma won't say die also no regrets anymore. I still want to live longer, you know. Want to see more things with you. I just saying only." Wei Jie felt a warmth surge up to his chest. Wordlessly, he gently placed his hand on her shoulder. Outwardly, they were just ordinary people in a quiet corner of Singapore, but in that moment they had transcended age and circumstance, deeply embedding themselves in each other's lives. Tender affection, a warm sense of responsibility, and beneath it all, a special, almost sacred emotion was delicately woven between them. "Ah Ma," Wei Jie said softly, "I want to stay here too. With you? Learn more about farming, go eat nice food together. I want to put down roots here in Kranji. If like that then good. Don't leave me alone, okay?" That evening, the sunset was an unusually brilliant crimson, the sky vast and high. Its light seemed to gently blanket the long-held loneliness that lay between them. The scent of the earth from the fields, carried on the breeze, and the chirping of crickets all felt like a beautiful soundtrack blessing their moment. And so, time flowed. Wei Jie's small farm began to yield abundant, healthy crops. He often helped out on other small farms in the area, honing his agricultural skills. With Ah Ma Mei, he'd spend evenings by a small charcoal brazier in the cooler months, listening to her old stories or planning the next planting season. The local community, who once whispered with curiosity, now looked upon them with a quiet admiration. That young man like a grandson, really filial, taking care of Ah Ma like that. But those who observed them more closely knew it was a bond deeper than that of a grandson and grandmother. One spring, Wei Jie finally made a decision. "Ah Ma, I'm thinking of properly renovating this house and staying. I don't think I'll go back to the city anymore." Tears welled up in Ah Ma Mei's eyes. "If you do that, Ah Ma also feel very steady, secure." No words can say this feeling. In their exchanged gazes, the years Ah Ma Mei had lived and the future Wei Jie would live seemed to merge. Miraculous connections, it is said, often find us in the most unexpected places, and they were living proof that when such connections deepen, even the most wounded spirits can slowly heal. Finally, on a bright, sunny day, another small community festival was held. This time, Ah Ma Mei, her health much improved, went with Wei Jie. To people from different generations, yet they walked at the same pace. Ah Ma Mei still nagged whenever she found an opportunity, and Wei Jie found her nagging endearing. When people looked and whispered, they both felt a little shy, but quietly. They held hands and walked together through the cheerful crowd. The young man who had lost his warmth in the city, and the old woman who had rediscovered an unexpected affection at the end of her life. The story they were creating was only just beginning. This special emotion, transcending age, had tilled the soil of their hearts, much like it tilled the fields of Kranji, allowing new hope to sprout. Even if the wall of time would inevitably separate them one day, the warmth and tenderness of this present moment would forever shine in their hearts.